Now on 4, we join Paul Morley for a final Thing Is.
Meet my relations, all of them grinning like face pack. But, as always, what have we got on tonight's show? Steve, who have we got tonight?
Brian Eno, I believe.
Who the heck is Brian Eno? Do you know Brian Eno?
I think I know a tune by him.
Oh, go on then, if you must. You might have heard of Brian Eno because he was in Roxy Music. Or because in the late 70s and early 80s he made 4 albums that contain some of the most beautiful melodies of the last 500 years. You might know him because he wrote the theme tune for the ENO television programme, or because he produced David Bowie, Talking Heads, U2. Then again, you may never have heard of Brian Eno, never even heard of U2, David Bowie, whatever. Whether you've heard of him or haven't, love him or hate him. How about looking at the next 25 minutes as a profile of a man who makes a living, makes time, art, entertainment, adventure, out of being simply himself. Oh, that Brian Eno! And then, of course, as often happens, I went out on the streets to think of something to say. I always thought to myself that if I ever got a chance to do The Thing Is an interview, there would be 3 people that I would really like to talk to. Steve Martin, Kurt Vonnegut, and Brian Eno. Now, I remember I interviewed Steve Martin once. I'd always wanted to interview Steve Martin. And I got my comedy jacket on, my comedy tie, my comedy shirt, my comedy trousers, my comedy socks, my comedy shoes, my comedy underwear, and I had an owl through my head. I stormed in. He asked me what I wanted to drink. I said I'll have 15 bowls of cornflakes, 14 Carlsberg specials, 3 peppermint liqueurs, a bowl of Maltesers. I really tried to be funny. I finished at a remarkable sentence that I think went on for 25 minutes, consisting of every foodstuff known to man. He then looked at me, and I said, Steve, you haven't got an owl through your head. And he said, I think it was a wise idea that I had. I think one of the reasons that I want to interview Brian Eno is not so much that he offers a kind of radical critique of contemporary culture, or attempts to refine or remotivate it. More that he sort of offers reminders, suggests interesting possibilities. I think the thing you're after when you interview someone is to kind of get into a situation where you two could be the only 2 people alive in the world. Nothing else is happening outside where you're doing the interview. You need to create a wonderful intimacy. Sexual? It has been known. The A to Z of everybody that Brian Eno has worked with over the last 20 years. And A is for anybody that you care to mention. B is for Bono of U2, who had this to say about working with Eno. With him we discovered the spirit of our music and a confidence in ourselves. And B is for David Bowie, who said this about Eno. It was a bit like being 4 years old and having a rather fun uncle who could produce little coins out of his ear. C is for carry on with the list.
Am I supposed to chase you down the stairs here?
Incidentally, at this moment in time, for all I knew, Brian Eno might have decided not to do the interview. You could have heard my first question and walked away.
Hi, Paul.
Great to meet you, Brian. I once interviewed Lou Reed. He gave me 30 minutes. I thought he was joking, but he timed the interview to the exact minute. Halfway through me asking a question, he disappeared. I guess that's always at the back of your mind. You're halfway through a question and you think, this person I'm interviewing may well any minute just disappear. And you want to gather as much as you can before they go. You've never really done anything like this before?
No.
I mean, I've never seen an arena or an omnibus or a South Bank show, any of those classic, traditional...
I have a sort of antipathy to television interviews in a certain way because they nearly always end up getting so edited. In show business, you're supposed to think that any publicity is good publicity, but actually I don't see any boundaries to what I do as... If you do something which comes out as a piece of cheap tartary, if I saw myself on the Terry Wogan show, I'd lose faith in all of a shortcut. Same old shit over. Do I do it now? And I suppose it's because having seen some of your other shows, they're malleable enough and offbeat to look like they might do something else.
Of course.
Do you think we could have something to put in these cups?
I asked him the question, what do you want to drink? He said triple Pernod and blackcurrant. And that's my kind of interview. He said it.
Like that.
Oh, I love a silence.
So what are we doing now then?
What we're going to do is really try and find a way that we might work when we actually get down to talking about Eno.
There are actually some quite good interview strategies. When I was in Japan, a guy said, here's a dictionary, just open it and stick your finger in and talk about whatever word you hit.
So in other words, when we do the interview, we should find a technique. Do you fancy a technique?
I wouldn't mind a strategy, yeah.
Well, there's two ways of doing it. I mean, one is this could be the entire programme. And secondly, which I've always fancied and once reached a state of with Grace Jones, is where I simply printed the questions.
Well, certainly that's the ultimate pop interview, because it puts the
doesn't
focus
say much,
where...
really, does it?
Well, no, but it puts the focus of attention where it was intended to be,
Not the interviewer.
which is on the interviewer. Another style I did in Germany, I tried a few interviews like this, where I had a phone book, and I would just take the last 2 digits of the next number. So a question would come up, and I'd look at the last 2 digits, and it was 21. So I'd answer it in 21 words.
Right, you know, you have 23 words to tell us, and in case we don't know, who you are.
I call myself an artist, which means I work in several different media. I make videos, installations, soundtracks, records, and I'm also a record producer.
When you have 12 words, do you say, I am not pretentious?
I don't know if I'm pretentious or not. I don't really care.
You have 3 words to tell us what it was like to work with the singer Carmel.
Confusing, but sharp.
Ryan, you know, you have 14 words to answer the question, perfume, why? Just in case we don't get a chance to mention it elsewhere, it's worth noting that Brian Eno is very interested in perfumes. In fact, he tries to develop original perfumes of his own. He said that perfumes are important, much more than people generally regard them. Chemical... No, I don't want to do this anymore. You got 3 left.
I'm always sniffing.
Brian Eno, you have 19 words to tell us something positive about what we know as New Age.
New Age music proved that people can listen to quite boring material.
Brian Eno, you have 12 words to tell us. Are you sometimes surprised by the things that pop out of your mouth?
One of the reasons for having conversations is to discover your thoughts.
Brian Eno, you have 7 words to answer the question, what is a boring question?
One to which you know the answer.
Brian Eno, you have to have 8 words to answer the question, is this a boring question?
There must be a good answer to this.
If somebody had said, before we started, that there'd be moments when Eno was just literally crying with laughter, well, I would have cried with laughter myself. There's a great bit, which I don't believe we have, when Eno mentioned pissing in Duchamp's urinal, but knowing our luck, the camera wasn't on.
I did a talk last year at the Museum of Modern Art in New York about high art, low art. That was the subject of the talk. In the afternoon, I sneaked into the museum and pissed in Duchamp's urinal. And it happened at a time in New York when this word decommodification was a very big buzzword. And I called what I did recommodification. But I thought it was a nice wrap-up of the history of art in this century. You know, Duchamp comes up with this piece of porcelain and it becomes a sacred, holy object. And then finally, at the end of the century, someone pisses into it again.
Maybe he was taking the piss.
It doesn't seem to be coming up. So let's go to Pat with the weather. On the way between locations, Eno was very bored. He started fiddling with the ashtray in the Jaguar, which opened and shut in a way that he found particularly satisfying. He asked the driver to stop the car when he got out and came back with a packet of fruit bonbons and a copy of the London Evening Standard. He asked the driver to turn up the music on Melody Radio. He said it made him feel good to sit in the back of the car hearing that kind of music. The driver turned around and said, "How old's Brian Ferry then?" I suppose that's the problem with being more of a theorist than a performer. "How old's Brian Ferry?" said Eno. "Well, he used to be the same age as me." A classic answer. A good strategy for doing the interview tomorrow might be let's encompass everything, cover everything, define, describe, conclude everything in a 8-minute Dave Letterman type interview with Brian Eno. Brian.
Yo, Paul.
Fantastic.
How you doing?
I've seen it was John Cale last year.
Wrong way up.
How'd it go?
Usual 12,000 reluctant sales.
Oh, you have a card. What have you been doing since? You too, I think. Acting the baby.
Did a bit of U2, yeah. A couple of Shindo's Shrine inaugurations in Japan.
Saw it in a law magazine.
Yeah.
Nice spread.
Nice,
Eight or nine pages.
Gave me 8 pages. 5 figures.
They paid you. They paid you.
Oh, 5 figures. High 5 figures.
People like to do that.
Yeah.
You too, acting the baby.
Mm-hmm.
Good to see you helping out the minority artists.
I always think you've got to do something for the small guys, you know. They're really that's really what keeps the scene
Do you learn
alive.
anything from working with those people?
Well, I think you do, you know.
Records worldwide?
They've been around for a few years, working hard, not really getting far, you know.
Well.
Coming up with a lot of fresh new ideas like these young bands do. And, you know, Paul, when you're in the mainstream, fame is like a shell around you. You can so easily get insulated from the real fibre of life. And it's nice to tap into that kind of gutsy, rootsy energy that you get from a small band like them.
Done you a bit of good then?
I think it's done me a lot of good, and I hope I helped them out a bit.
What was it? Music for Airports, 192,000 in Rio de Janeiro, wasn't it?
Yeah, we did it in Rio, and we did it in Sao Paulo.
Oh, it's incredible.
164,000.
Incredible.
We did a 2.5-hour Music for Airports there. Did On Land in Tokyo. At the.
But you know what we're all thinking, Brian? When are you going to start singing those songs again? I mean, we miss your voice.
Really.
My baby's on fire. Third uncle. Have we got, maybe tonight, get a chance? What do you think?
Well,
anyway, Brian, see you soon. Hey, stick around.
Oh.
We've got some models on in a minute, some dresses to look at. You fancy that? Martin Scorsese's coming on next.
Yeah. Sure.
You got the Oscars, so
good.
Stick around.
Nice to see
Brian,
Marty again.
Thank you very much. Stay there. So I said, go on. The camera's not running. What do you really do on a U2 album? And he says, well, on this new one, Actung Baby, I heard it in, say, July of a particular year, and it was really rubbish. So I just suggested they all go on a 2-week holiday. They came back, they heard it, agreed with me, and said, that was a great piece of production. You're good at lying, aren't you, Brian?
2 words.
You told me, in fact,
Yes,
that you've almost been trained to be a liar.
I was trained, yeah.
Because I was wondering, as we've been making this program, almost looking at some of the things you've done, it's almost like a lot of the things you've done have been this fantastic kind of broad representation of not telling the truth. Whether you work with other people, make the kind of music you make, the videos, everything. It's almost like it's just been a long series of really kind of strange lies. Do you know what I mean by that?
I think that's what people do. They invent stories, really. But then after they've done it, they pretend that was what they really meant all the time.
You mean the value of hindsight kind of thing? I knew exactly what I was doing.
If you want to lie, the way to do it is just to imagine what the world would be like if your lie were true.
Of course, when somebody says something like that to you, you then have to worry, is it true or false?
And then just inhabit that world and see what happens. That's a good way of projecting into the future as well. Imagine a future where Michael Bolton is a fringe avant-garde artist.
Yeah.
What would all the values of that society be then? Wonderful.
Maybe if we were in that world, I would hate it as much as we hate the world where Michael Bolton is, in fact.
Yeah, maybe I would be sitting here as Michael Bolton.
And you would be just as hating. Can I just pop in? So I just wanted to tell you that I think it's going really well. Because we did a lot of, I went out on the streets of London yesterday to ask people. Have you ever heard of Brian Eno?
Brian Eno.
What?
Brian Eno.
No, I haven't.
No.
What does he do?
Italy.
Italy.
Not at all.
No, I haven't, no.
Brian Eno.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Is he a musician?
It's Roxy Music, isn't it?
Is that it?
That's it, really.
Is that my screen test over?
Yeah, great.
Does that annoy you as an artist?
It doesn't. It neither annoys me or surprises me. So,
2% said, oh yes, he used to be in Roxy Music.
yeah. That's what I normally get as well. Like when I got the car down here yesterday, the guy said, "Oh, hello. They just played Virginia Plain on the radio." As if I was going to go, Riz! Amazing. It happens all the time, but don't you get this same thing?
Oh yeah, they remember that 1977 article on Joy Division. I've always wanted to say, this is exactly halfway through the programme.
It's just boring, that's all, to be faced with what now seems to me like distant past, half a lifetime ago.
As of today, at 20 to 5, these are my 6 favourite albums that Brian Eno has been involved in. Eno with Bird, My Life in a Bush of Ghosts, David Bowie's Low, Roxy Music's For Your Pleasure, U2's Actung Baby, Talking Heads' Fear of Music, and Devo, Are We Not Men? And you know, I think there's a pretty good case, and I'm not joking when I say this, to say that these are the 6 best rock albums ever
question
made.
I ask myself is, who was the person doing that? Because quite often I can't imagine how I arrived at those results.
What do you think, looking back on those things that you've done?
Well, I don't fucking care.
No, but I mean, you know, as of today, at this moment in time, just gone 4:45, my 6 favourite Brian Eno albums. Another Green World, Apollo, that he made with Daniel Lano and Roger Eno, Long Way Up, that he made with John Cale, Before and After Science, Music for Airports, Here Come the Warm Jets. And you know, I'm not joking when I say that these could be the 6 best albums ever made. I remember that I used to play No Pussyfooting at 16 RPM, when it began almost to become an object.
You're right, it does have a sort of sculptural feeling to it. It's a sound that is so dense that it's up to like 100 overlays of guitar. It's very, very thick electric guitar.
Brian Eno said that the closest thing to what he does musically is heavy metal. I must say that the way I got into those, though, it wasn't really a music that I was interested in, but you were a glam rock hero at that time. And did you find that fascinating, that as a glam rock hero, therefore you were probably opening up an audience that to an extent is probably still the same audience you have today for that kind of thing? I mean, have you been aware of that in a way?
Somewhat, yeah. Because being a glam rock hero was a bit of a surprise to me.
It was a surprise to everybody, I think.
I can remember feeling that the Velvet Underground were my ancestors musically, that they were the people from whom I took inspiration, and The Who were the other important band for me. From quite early on, I've always made this issue about contemporary music being something that actually anyone could do. You know, in the past, to be involved in music required actual physical skills. It really doesn't now. What it does require is judgment, and judgment certainly seems to most people like something that's easy to cultivate as opposed to skills. I don't think it is, actually. I think there are just as many difficulties in that. But
Well, Dan, can you explain to me what oblique strategies are? Something you invented in, 1975?
yeah, this was an idea for how to get yourself out of a rut. If you're in a situation in the studio or writing or performing a neurosurgical operation or something like that, and you come to a kind of impasse. What do? You can't think of what to do. So
You take a card.
you take a card.
It's Brian on the phone now.
You have to. This is a bit of a nerve-wracking point because
This is what you're going to do next.
whatever the card
Absolutely
says is what you have to
next.
do.
All right.
Change instrument roles. Do I have to use your list of questions?
No, nor do you have to. This is the bit where I asked Brian Eno question number 4.
Just
Just speaking to you as a man, Brian, one hears lots of myths about your sexual appetite. Is that in the past been the case?
yeah, big appetite. Yeah, I think everyone's got a big appetite if they allow themselves to have. And I didn't see any reason not to allow myself. I didn't see a reason to censor it, actually.
How's your sexual appetite changed as you've grown older? Has it changed?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, appetite has consequences. And I think awareness of consequences is what makes a difference. It's not that the appetite changes so much, but also I think because I think one thing that does happen as you get older probably, and especially as you get older in the 90s, is that sex becomes more psychological and less actually physical.
Of course.
And psychological sex takes a lot longer. It's not as quick. So the sheer number of partners is reduced. One of the other things that one can look at as a good cultural indicator is pornography.
Oops.
If you go into an American porno shop, it's all pink. Everything is pink. It's all close-ups of pink bits of people. But if you go into a French shop, first of all, there's a lot of lingerie involved in everything. Sort of whimsical underclothing, a lot of costumes, fantasy clothing, but also there are a lot of books that are not even photographic. They're cartoon books, they're drawings. And in fact, one of the reasons I feel that Europe is a more mature culture is because of its styles of pornography, as opposed to the American styles. The only American pornography that is as evolved is the sort of bizarre stuff, you know, the bondage stuff. Some of that is quite interesting.
The only one we've got in stock is Thursday afternoon.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, we've sold right out of...
Have you really?
yeah.
Have you ever seen any of these?
No.
Do you want to see any of these?
Yeah, okay. Yep, is this going to stand up?
We've got this video here by a video artist called Brian Eno. Essentially what you do to see it in its correct format, you turn your television on the right side so you create a different shaped screen. And more or less what you're seeing there is what you're going to get for about 47 minutes, really. Would that be of any interest to you?
If you maintain that one picture for all that time, I would find it a bit irritating.
It wouldn't soothe you, relax you, inspire
It would
you?
relax me. No, really, I don't think so. It's more relaxing in that way. No, I think no, really. It reminds me of the Chinese way of looking at pictures. You see, they don't have them on the walls. Put them up one day and then sit for an hour or 30 minutes and look at them, then you take them down.
Yeah.
And then they really see the pictures.
Yes.
But we have them all the time and we never really look at them.
Yeah.
What's he supposed to be saying in this video then?
It's kind of possibly meant to make you think about visual images and sound in a different way to how we usually think. I mean, would that make you go, wow, I think about the world in a whole new way now. I see things in a different way from I've ever seen them before.
Not really, no.
It wouldn't inspire you then?
I'll have to watch all the video first.
Well, when he does a video, this is pretty much what you get. You know, nothing much happens, basically, in a traditional sense.
No, if it was maybe starving children, it maybe think twice about it, yeah. But not just watching some naked body. Just looks as if she's spaced out on the telly.
Yeah. I don't think I'll have it, thanks. Okay, thanks very much. Why is karaoke positive then?
I think because it says to people, you can do something. You can yourself be entertaining. You don't have to just sit there and be a member of the audience.
There are Turks, there are fools, there are mockers, there in schools, then there was you. Then there was you. I burn my fingers, burn my toes, burn my uncle, burn his books, burn his shoes, cook the leather, put it on me. Does it fit me? Or was it you? It looks tight on you.
Is that going to be in the programme? Let's hope not.
Okay, let's go with Les Dennis, who's got a new impersonation at last. It's Harold Godkey. Responding to accusations that Brian Eno was a cold and unemotional man, his brother Roger said that in fact they came from a very emotional family. He said, well, our father, he used to cry at Lassie films.
My mother did say to me, when I was quite well into my career, do you think you'll ever get a real job?
So, oh, really?
Yes. I was already fairly advanced in my career by then. So, but I think she likes what I do.
What did she imagine you would become?
She wanted me to work in the post office.
Job for life.
Well, it's a job in the communications industry, isn't it? It's not that big a shift, really.
I suppose not.
My dad was a postman, you see, and my grandfather.
A big line of postmen, huh?
Yeah, we come from a long line, yeah.
Why were postmen such important things in your time?
I don't know. I guess it's a hereditary
It's thing to
job.
hand down, isn't it?
But it's a nice job in a small town, because everyone knows you.
That's one of my favourite sentences you've delivered at this interview. It's a nice job in a small town. Sounds like a Lou Reed line, doesn't it?
That is a good line, yeah. Yeah, it's very good. Or a David Byrne line, yeah. I got a nice job in a small town.
So, should we do an interview then, Brian?
All right, let's get your questions out and we'll start.
Well, maybe we've done it already.
Uh-huh. What, the interview?
I think we might have done it already.
Oh, I see, yeah. Yes, I see, right. You mean I've said enough sound bites for you to string together some feeble excuse for a program?
If you say so. Anyway, on tomorrow's show, we've got writer Richard Rorty coming back with some of his everyday philosophical questions. And, because it's not that time of the year, the lady who puts the little plastic robins on the Christmas cake will be popping in all to take us this year. So you agreed to do it then?
Yes. I've already agreed.
Oh, you have? Oh, good.
But does that mean we stop now?
Not necessarily.
I was thinking, isn't it funny that television never really examines people closely? It always tries to examine them closely psychologically, but it never does what it could do extremely well, which is examine them closely physically. You know, like people's eyebrows have always interested me. I was having a conversation with a woman yesterday who had huge eyebrows, like Dennis Healy almost. And I was so